Hello and welcome to the 17th Annual Gold Derby Film Awards nomination ceremony. We're going to be announcing the nominees in 22 categories today. And I'm Chris Beachum with Gold Derby. We've got Joyce Ng, Daniel Montgomery, Marcus Dixon, Susan Wloszczyna, and Paul Sheehan. We've never had so many editors on one of these nomination announcements, but we've got it all worked out. We know who's doing what. You won't hear all the little patter that you heard last week on the Oscar nomination ceremony. Although Daniel, unlike any other event, is going to give you some details on some of these categories, who finished just out of the running, and any other things that we might question him about, since he kept up really well with the nominations as they were coming in. We have slightly different categories only in a couple of cases. We don't do the shorts that the Oscars do. We combined sound into one category, which we feel like Oscars should do instead of sound editing, sound mixing. But we do have Best Breakthrough Performer, and we have Best Ensemble of the Year. So those will be some that you hear later on. So we're going to kick things off with our first category from Daniel.
Yep, I'm going to get things started with the nominees for Best Foreign Language Film. The nominees are Burning, Cold War, Happy as Lazaro, Roma, and Shoplifters. The only two Oscar nominees who missed were Capernaum. That was actually in 6th place, but it was actually a pretty wide margin. This was a pretty locked-in top 5, and Never Look Away was in 12th.
Okay.
I'm next with documentary feature, and the nominees are Free Solo, Minding the Gap, RBG, Three Identical Strangers, and Won't You Be My Neighbor. So we have 2 of the big Oscar snubbies in there.
Yeah, and this was a pretty locked-in top 5.
I'm gonna guess that animated feature lineup is the same. It's Incredibles 2, Isle of Dogs, Mirai, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, those are the same 5 as the Oscars, and it was a pretty locked-in top 5 here too. There was no one who was really close. The Grinch was in 6th, Early Man was in 7th, and Teen Titans was in 8th.
Let me say, just as a little, I don't know if it's a spoiler or a little fun fact as we head into the rest of the categories, I think, if I did my math right, this is the only category that Paul just read that's exactly the same as the Oscars.
I think there might be 1 or 2, maybe one other one.
One other one? Okay.
Yeah, I think there's one other in the technical.
That was it. Well, just know that there are differences all along the way, but I was thinking this was the only category that was the same.
And Best Visual Effects is very different than the Oscars. So our nominations are Annihilation, Aquaman, Avengers Infinity War, Black Panther, and First Man.
Yeah, so that's only 2 out of the 5 Oscar nominees in our category.
Aquaman didn't even make their short list.
Right.
Yeah.
And that made a lot of people mad. So
I don't think Annihilation made their short list either.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, Ready Player One was the closest to a nomination of those that missed. It was in 6th place by 35 points. So if you consider that first place on the nomination ballot is 3 points, that's basically 12 ballots that it missed a nomination by. Then there was a steep drop-off after that. The other Oscar nominees weren't even close. Solo was 12th, and Christopher Robin was 14th.
Wow.
I have Best Sound, Bohemian Rhapsody, First Man, A Quiet Place, Roma, and A Star is Born.
And this was a little surprising. Black Panther didn't make the cut, but it only missed by 60 points.
60?
Yeah. So
tell me how many people voted, because I think it's by far the most we've ever had on a nomination round.
Yeah, 20 ballots. So it missed out on a nomination by about 20 ballots. We had more than 2,500 ballots cast.
Wow.
So any margin less than 100 for a nomination is somewhat close, and some of them got a lot closer than that. So that was the one that just missed. I was surprised that Black Panther didn't get it.
Think about that, 2,500 people, the only group that does film awards that would have more would be the Oscars, and that's what, Paul, 8 or 9,000 people now. Maybe 80%, 80% of those people vote, but that's still way more than us. But Golden Globes is less than 100. Critics' Choice is 300 range. Well, SAG Awards, I guess that's over 100,000 people.
And BAFTAs probably.
BAFTA, is BAFTA 2,500, Paul? Or is it?
Oh, no, BAFTA is almost as big as the Motion Picture Academy.
Okay, well, never mind anything I said then. It's still a lot of people, and I think we've typically topped out more in the last year or two, 1,500, 1,600 range. So it's a really huge jump, thanks to I think a lot of the blockbusters that were artistic and part of the conversation this year. And speaking of some of those, we've got some of those in the production design category. The nominees are Black Panther, The Favorite, First Man, Mary Poppins Returns, and Roma.
And I think that's right in line with the Oscars too.
Okay.
The closest one was Annihilation, that was in 6th place, which was surprising me. Actually, it was in nomination position for a certain period of voting, and then it eventually fell out. But it missed by less than 100 points. And there was also some significant support for Crazy Rich Asians, A Star Is Born, Isle of Dogs. I wish more animated films would get more credit for production design. So that was in our top 10 as well. And that brings us to the 2 music categories, starting with Best Original Song. The nominees are When a Cowboy Trades His Spurs for Wings from The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, All the Stars from Black Panther, Revelation from Boy Erased, The Place Where Lost Things Go from Mary Poppins Returns, and no surprise here, Shallow from A Star Is Born. That would have been the biggest surprise if we'd left that one out.
Poor Diane Warren.
Poor Diane. She, alas, wasn't very close. But she's not, I don't think she's as overdue with us. Actually, she probably won for Till It Happens to You from us. I'd have to go back and check to make sure that. So she's, we don't owe her as much as the Oscars do. What's interesting about this category is we were so close to nominating Suspirium from Suspiria. It was in nominations position for the longest time, and then it fell out and it missed by 3 points.
Wow.
3
One
points
person
out of
changes
nomination.
their vote from something else to that in first place, and they're in.
Yeah. Sunflower from Spider-Man, the Post Malone song, actually finished 7th. Triple Little Light Fantastic didn't come in until 8th. And I loved how much support Ashes from Deadpool 2 got. It was in 9th.
Okay.
And then the nominees for Best Score. The nominees are Black Panther, First Man, If Beale Street Could Talk, Isle of Dogs, and Mary Poppins Returns. So the only Oscar nominee who missed there was Black Klansman. That was in 8th place. We actually had A Quiet Place in 6th place. It missed by less than 100 points. Annihilation also had a lot of support there too in 7th place. So a lot of near misses for Annihilation.
We nominated First Man and the Oscars.
We nominated First Man for Best Score, yeah.
I know what Marcus is voting for.
Next, we have Best Makeup and Hair, and we have 5 nominees, not 3 like the Oscars.
Because the Oscars should as well.
Yes. And they are Black Panther, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Suspiria, and Vice.
Yeah. It's interesting that we had 5 nominees as opposed to the Oscars 3, and we still only nominated one of the Oscar nominees, which was Vice. Mary Queen of Scots was in 6th place in our voting, and Border was in 7th. So the 2 Oscar nominees just...
Our people haven't seen Border. What are they doing voting for Border?
I
just
think
look at
that's
the
true in a
pictures.
couple of these categories.
You don't need to see the movie, just look at the pictures.
That's like saying somebody watched 7 Seconds on Netflix. I mean, come on. Sorry, Regina.
Don't watch this, Regina. Next is Best Film Editing, and this one is quite different from the Oscar lineup. The nominees are The Favorite, First Man, Roma, A Quiet Place, and A Star Is Born.
So the only nominee in common was The Favorite. Of the Oscar nominees that missed with us, BlacKkKlansman actually came the closest in 6th. Vice was 7th, but then Bohemian Rhapsody was 13th, and Green Book was 19th. So yeah, those last couple weren't even close with us, as opposed to the.
What's the biggest disparity between an Oscar nominee and one of ours? Is it 19th?
It's that, or I think that might be it, but there are a couple others that come close.
Well, you know, we love writing about trends in the Oscars, and I guess we have to start writing about trends in Gold Derby Awards. For instance, you know, historically, you don't win a Best Picture at the Oscars if you don't have that editing nomination. So I wonder if that rule holds true at the Gold Derby Awards.
Well, one thing about our awards, and this has only happened in the last year or year and a half, is if you're wondering about last year, any of the 16 previous years, all of the nominees, all of the winners are now on IMDb. You just click on somebody's name, Leo DiCaprio's name, and you could see all of his Gold Derby right up under things like Oscars and SAG Awards and Golden Globes and so forth. Or you could click on type in a movie's name or TV show's name, and they'll come up there. We also have that in our forums in a separate section where you can look at them. Also, you can see people's comments about them there.
And to that, Chris, because people will now be voting, how important it is, because you'll reach out, you'll actually send to all the winners certificates that they...
Winners get certificates, and we've heard from so many of them that they get them framed, and that it's really, we'll see them out on the circuit somewhere. It could be weeks later, months later, they'll thank us for their Gold Derby Award. This morning alone, they don't get certificates, but I'll be sending out the link to all the nominees to every single studio, campaigner, PR firm. If we deal specifically with a particular nominee and I have their email address, I'll certainly send to them as well. So they really do appreciate this. Think about we talked about 2,500 people that aren't just, randomly, People's Choice Award kind of a thing. It's people that love movies and people voting on movies that probably watched 75-80% of what came out that was considered a contender. So they know their stuff. We all know our stuff, and I think that's why people like getting nominated with us and winning with us.
Right.
Some of them even watched Border.
Right.
I'd like to meet those people.
And also, just even if you didn't vote for the nominees, you can register and vote for the winners. You can be, so it's not just like America's Got Talent and those super fans, right, Marcus? It's not a closed community. Yeah. Anyone that's watching this can vote for the winners. So the next category that you'll be voting in is Best Costume Design, and the nominees are Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians, The Favorite, Mary Poppins Returns, and Mary Queen of Scots.
So that
Crazy
was 4 out of
got
5.
in with us, but not at the Oscars.
Yeah, Ballad of Buster Scruggs got in at the Oscars, but it was 7th with us. It was the closest to a nomination that missed was actually Bohemian Rhapsody. That was in 6th place. It missed by fewer than 50 points.
Gosh. And then the 5 nominees for Best Cinematography are Cold War, and I'm glad you didn't write down the names of the cinematographers. The Favorite, First Man, Roma, and A Star Is Born.
Yeah, and that was a pretty locked-in-place top 5. No one really came close to that. Beale Street was in 6th place by 170 points, so it was well out of a nomination. Other movies, Black Panther had strong support. Buster Scruggs had surprisingly strong support here. So yeah, but these 5 were always going to be the 5, I think.
And now we have Best Breakthrough Performer, and this is a category the Oscars do not have. I guess the BAFTAs have kind of something similar. But our nominees, and this is for anything. It's not necessarily just for one specific movie, although it can be. Sometimes some of these nominees are in multiple things. Yalitza Aparicio, Awkwafina, Elsie Fisher, John David Washington, and Alex Wolff.
You'll notice on our nominee list every year, we don't have a title next to the name because they might have done multiple things. John David Washington was in 2 movies this year. I think Awkwafina was in 3. So we don't list a specific movie. It's just for their breakthrough year of 12 months.
Yeah. There was a lot of love spread around to people who even didn't get nominated. Thomas and Mackenzie, who broke out in Leave No Trace, she finished in 6th place. Missed out by just 65 points. There was a lot of support for Elizabeth Debicki and Letitia Wright, Constance Wu, and even Stephen Yeun. So there was a lot of love spread around. I was very, very excited to see how many people had a lot of support, even if they didn't get in.
Well, I have Best Ensemble, and it's Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians, The Favorite, A Star is Born, and Something That Makes Me Happy, Widows. So cool for that.
Susan, would you vote for Widows just because of the cat? I mean, the dog alone?
Yes, I own a Westie.
Olivia was a star last year.
Well,
she's part of the ensemble, right?
Yeah.
No, she's not listed. She's not listed in the like. I could add her to, but
no, that opened up a lot of problems. TV and film.
Yeah, a Black Klansman, which was nominated at the SAG Awards, that finished in 6th. It missed by less than 60 points. Another SAG nominee, Bohemian Rhapsody, though that was farther back in 11th.
Well, I've got the 2 screenplay categories next. Best Original Screenplay. We have 8th Grade,
Yay!
The Favorite, First Reformed, A Quiet Place, and Roma.
Yeah, and this was the Oscar nominees who missed with us were Green Book and Vice. Green Book actually finished 6th, but it was like 170 points behind. This was a locked-in top 5.
Daniel, how many accounts did you create and vote for 8th Grade?
I only needed the one. Thankfully, I was so happy that got in here.
Yeah, you can make multiple email accounts to vote. You're not limited. So
Green Book and Vice missing. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Hereditary actually finished 7th, so it got more votes than Vice did, which was exciting to see.
So Green Book was in 6th.
Yeah, Green Book was in 7th.
Okay. Best Adapted Screenplay: Black Klansman, Can You Ever Forgive Me, The Death of Stalin, If Beale Street Could Talk, and A Star is Born.
Yeah, and this is also a very interesting 6 through 10. Spider-Man was actually the near miss. It was in 6th place by 80 points, which is
I voted for that.
Surprisingly close for. I would not have thought that would fit. It got more votes than Black Panther, which was in 7th. Annihilation, another category where it finished in our top 10. And then First Man and Leave No Trace were rounded out that.
Where was Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
But we actually, because Ballad of Buster Scruggs, there was confusion about original versus adapted. We actually had it in our original category, and it wasn't close there either. So. And that brings us to Best Supporting Actor, the first of our acting categories, not counting Breakthrough. The nominees are Mahershala Ali for Green Book, Timothée Chalamet for Beautiful Boy, Adam Driver, Black Klansman, Sam Elliott, A Star is Born, and Richard E. Grant, Can You Ever Forgive Me? And this was an overwhelming consensus around these 5 nominees. But again, this was another really interesting 6 through 10. Alex Wolff from Hereditary was in 6th place, but he was out by more than 200 points. And then you had Michael B. Jordan, Black Panther, Stephen Yeun in Burning, Nicholas Hoult in The Favorite, and Hugh Grant in Paddington 2. That was the rest of our top 10.
Robbed.
Yeah. Sam Rockwell finished 14th.
Oh, wow.
He was not even close.
Wow. Well,
that was just a cameo.
It really was.
Last year, Timothy's people, not his people that work for him, but fans, overwhelmed us. He won actor. I believe he won breakthrough. The movie won best picture. So Timothy's back with us, and that's not unexpected based on last year.
Next is Best Supporting Actress, and the nominees are Amy Adams, Vice, Emily Blunt, A Quiet Place, Regina King, If Beale Street Could Talk, Emma Stone, The Favorite, and Rachel Weisz, The Favorite. So no
So Regina,
Marina Del Tavira. Shocker.
Yeah. And Regina, you can tune back in now. This was another overwhelming top 5. No one really came close. Claire Foy was in 6th place, but she missed by about 250 points. Elizabeth Debicki had some support. She was in 7th place. Marina de Tavira did actually finish in the top 10. She was in 9th.
Next is Best Actor. Christian Bale in Vice, Bradley Cooper for A Star is Born, Ethan Hawke for First Reformed, yay. Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody, and double yay, Viggo Mortensen, Green Book.
Yeah, and another strong consensus around this top 5. The interesting thing is who was actually 6th. It was actually Joaquin Phoenix for You Were Never Really Here, but he was more than 100 points out. Willem Dafoe, who's the other Oscar nominee who got in at the Oscars instead of Ethan Hawke, he was actually 14th in our voting. What's interesting about that is that he actually got fewer votes for Best Actor than Mahershala Ali and Timothée Chalamet, because we had them in both categories, actor and supporting actor.
Oh, interesting.
They got enough votes for supporting, but they got more votes in lead than Willem Dafoe did.
So you're saying we don't care about category fraud either?
We don't seem to. As also evidenced by Emily Blunt and supporting actress for A Quiet Place. John Cho actually finished in 9th. He had actually a lot of first place votes for Searching. So that was a very passionate voice that didn't quite have enough exposure, I think.
Next up is Best Actress, and it looks like this lines up 4 for 5. So we have one that the Oscars do not. Our nominees are Yalitza Aparicio for Roma, Glenn Close for The Wife, Toni Collette for Hereditary, that's the one that we have that the Oscars don't, Olivia Colman for The Favorite, and Lady Gaga for A Star is Born.
Yeah, and this was the one acting race that was really, really close. Melissa McCarthy actually wasn't in the one in 6th. She was in 7th. Elsie Fisher was so close to a nomination for the entire time, and she was even in the top 5 for many periods. She missed out by 6 points. So that's basically 2 first place.
You needed to make 2 more accounts.
I really should have made 2 more accounts.
Let me mention on Glenn Close, Paul and I did a 20-minute interview with her yesterday, which just published about 23 minutes ago. So find that on our homepage and on our YouTube account. She is so charming, and Paul probably has the same opinion I did. She's really enjoying this whole award circuit. I think the whole 5-month process of, dinners and parties and receptions and Q&As and roundtables and award shows. It just seems like she's having a good time with this.
Okay, well, it's Best Director time. And we have Bradley Cooper for A Star is Born, so he got in there. And Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. John Krasinski for A Quiet Place.
Wow.
Yorgos Lanthimos. Oh, see, I got a bad. For The Favorite, and Spike Lee for Black Klansman.
Yeah, and this was so close for a nomination. Numbers 5th place through 8th place were separated by 60 points around. So there was always Ari Aster for Hereditary was in the top 5 at one point. Damien Chazelle was in the top 5 at one point. Barry Jenkins was always in the mix. So those were relatively close. The other Oscar nominees who missed with us, Pavel Pawlikowski was 12th, and Adam McKay was 14th. And the other DGA nominee, Peter Farrelly, he was 19th.
19 again.
Yeah.
There were some real disconnects between some of the Oscar nominees and our numbers this year.
Yeah. And one more thing I wanted to mention about Best Actress that was interesting. Emily Blunt actually finished in the top 10 twice there. Mary Poppins in 8th place and A Quiet Place in 9th place, even though she got the nomination.
Interesting.
Well, that brings us to Best Picture. We do a full 10 every year. We don't play around with, somewhere between 5 and 10 like the Oscar voters do. So our 10 nominees for Best Picture are, in alphabetical order, Black Klansman, Black Panther, The Favorite, Green Book, Hereditary, If Beale Street Could Talk, A Quiet Place, Roma, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and A Star is Born. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Is it 3?
Four films that didn't get into the
not get
Oscars.
Oscar nominations for Best Picture. We have 2 more slots than they do, but we still have two additional than they 4 different ones.
Have you had animated films in that category before?
Actually, several times. And Wall-E actually won Best Picture that year. But this is actually the first time that there has been an animated nominee that wasn't Disney or Pixar. It's almost always been Pixar, and then last year or the year before, Zootopia got in, and that was Disney, but not Pixar. This is Sony, so it's the first that's out of that family entirely. And this was so close from 9th to 11th place. It was like 30 points, and so I was always watching who would get those last 2 spots. And again, the one who just missed was 8th grade.
You didn't make those 2 more accounts.
I really should have. It was out by like 10 or 20 points. The other Oscar nominees, Bohemian Rhapsody was in 12th, and Vice was in 17th.
Still better than 19.
Yeah,
but
actually,
not getting in is a big surprise, right? Because I mean, we know that was massively watched.
It was massively watched, and the interesting thing is, it actually finished 5th if you only count #1 votes, which is telling of how divisive it was. It was either your #1 film or it wasn't on your list at all. And it's interesting. Vice actually performed worse than Avengers and Annihilation. Again, Annihilation, so many near misses for Annihilation. Those are both in the top 15.
Let me remind people the way we do this, and we only started this about 4 or 5 years ago. In the past, you could vote for 5 on everything, but we found out, and it was sort of anecdotal internally, but even from other people, when you get past about 3 on a lot of categories, you just start putting down things you think we want to see or things you think other people want to see nominated for the 4th and 5th. So we just went to 3 per category, and we give 3 points for your first place, 2 points for second, and 1 point for third. And we just think it causes more passion. That's why I think you see a Spider-Man in Best Picture or A Quiet Place or Hereditary. I think that's really fun because that means people could only mark them at the very upper part of their ballot. So I think that was a good way that we went 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. And in terms of nomination totals, you had The Favorite at the top with 12. A Star is Born, actually not vastly improving, but greatly improving on its Oscar total. Star is Born had 11. Roma, close to its Oscar total, it had 9. I believe Black Panther had 8. And Quiet Place had 6. So
Destroyer was robbed. Best movie of the year.
I don't think Nicole Kidman was close.
What, Chris?
I said, now what will you vote for Best Actress?
That's a surprise. Only I will know that.
We know Nicole's not in there. Well, let me explain what's about to happen. Daniel's going to publish this full list right now on the homepage. I'll copy that over into the forums thread so you can see them. I'll activate the event so that you can start voting. Now, here's where it gets really difficult. We do not allow 3. We do not allow 5. You're not ranking. You pick 1. You get 1 choice per category, and that choice gets 3 points from you as being the only choice that you're marking. So these, I know in my case, there's going to be several that I'm just going to stare at the screen and try to figure out which one gets my vote. You've got until the end of Sunday, February 17th. You can go in now and vote, go back later, change them. That's fine. So the 17th of February is 1 week out from the Oscars. We'll announce winners somewhere around middle of that week, somewhere around Wednesday, the, what would that be, 18th, 19th, 20th. We'll figure out our schedules and let you know when we're going to announce those. But have fun with it, and hope you enjoyed our nomination ceremony today. And anything else we need to remind people of before we go?
Make their Oscar predictions.
Absolutely. We've got far more Oscar predictions already at this stage than we did last year. And you can also predict the Grammys.
Daytime Emmy nominations.
There's 3 events coming up this weekend. Directors Guild. What are the other 2? Art directors.
BAFTA.
And DGA.
DGA art directors. Is there one other one? This one?
Ace Eddie.
Ace Eddie. So all of those are all. In fact, all the Guild Award events are in the prediction center, and so we want to see your predictions. Somebody's going to get 100%, and we want to know who that is. So thanks everybody for watching. Jump in there now and vote, and we'll see you soon.